But change can also, it also affects the people around us too. So change can, when you're going through that change, it has an impact on others too. So how has change had been a positive catalyst for others in your life?
That's a great question. So I will start with, when you assume this like label about yourself, honestly, mostly self-consciously, right? In the back of your mind, that running voice in your mind, you stop seeing the alternatives, right? If something is presented and accepted as the truth of like, this is who I am, which is what most people say, right? Alternative ways of thinking don't even come up for consideration. So then being somebody else, somebody who's empowered to help others truly, isn't even in your consideration set at that time, right? It doesn't seem possible. I couldn't possibly have time to do X. I couldn't possibly be good at Y to help these people or do this with this group or shift in terms of where I work or how I work or who I live with or, whatever those things may be for any one person. So, for me personally, the change allowed me to get a sense of, and sorry for this word being so overused, but, a possibility development and resilience around things that happen around me rather than to me, such that I can't control them. So the world and chaos and bad things and stressful things still are happening constantly. But what I was able to change was my reaction to them and what actions I took subsequently, right? So like something happened, you lose a contract, you don't get this job, what have you. I could accept that those things happen. They may be completely independently of my control. I cannot take into, well, I suck, I'm terrible, they didn't like me. It was, sometimes it's literally like a spreadsheet number moving on something that has nothing to do with you. And I was told that. And I was like, they must be just saying things to be nice, but they don't really mean that. Right. So when I kind of took the personal wound out of things that happened or the woe is me or why is this happening and trying to rationalize something and focused on what can I do about it? Can I do nothing? Can I do something else that will make me feel good? Can I spend my time where it will be valued? And that's what I've done. And then I found organizations and people that I could do that with in a constructive way. And some of that is in the nonprofit world with Women Who Create and Inspiring My Generation. Both organizations seek to help many, many people. Women Who Create is, as you said, a mentor and scholarship program for women of color or those who identify and trans folks of color. So it's really focused on leveraging the resources and connections that I have and my colleagues have to bring, advice and resources in terms of funding to folks who otherwise wouldn't have it, right? So it's an allyship effort, and I felt better about me. So I felt like I could more authentically do that. I also did that with what I consider my job, although again, as you know, from startup world, it's risky and scary and it's not all set yet, but it let me connect with a former colleague who created Evermore, and it just spoke to me on so many levels. And I decided that the passion has to be the leader, not the security. And that was fundamentally a shift. But it has allowed me to work with many, many, many young people and be a mentor to them and learn from them and feel like I'm helping, change the world a little bit for the better.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And I love the way that you advocate for so many different groups as well, and being that instigator of change. Is really inspiring. Now, as well, one of the things that also comes up when we talk about how change impacts others is the fact that there is that negativity towards it. There are going to be some people that maybe don't like the change that they're seeing, that you're creating or that you're doing, whether it's personal or professional. How do you deal with that?
Well, I'll address that in two parts, because I think one of the things that we didn't talk about was how long it takes. And that, there's a lot of research around shaping your future self into, changing yourself, shaping this future ideal you. It's a deliberate practice, and it's, a series of multiple small goals as well as the big goal. So it's not have your vision board, stick your stickers on it or whatever and go. It's really important. So along the journey, how you surround yourself with supporters versus detractors, I think, is as much as an important thing to recognize as those who may detract from you at the you that you are today.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you can't really effectively grow without a direction to that growth, and you need those goals for that. And along the journey, I know for myself, I did not do this on my own. And yet I have a background in mental wellness. I have a background in behavior change. I still went to experts for motivation and tips and grounding and ways to check in and be authentic. I spoke to a small number of trusted friends and family about what I was struggling with. And it was incredible. It was incredible to be that vulnerable. That was another change for me and challenge, was to be vulnerable, to admit that I didn't feel well, that I had, regrets and shame, that I felt overwhelmed with the changes I needed to make, that I felt scared of my future and what it would be. And so from the very early days, I evolved slightly, somewhat, and I'm still working on myself in many areas, including, my husband will tell you, patience and a few other ones, right? But we're all working on different areas. I essentially almost, when you're a child and you get to draw the about me for school, and you have all these dimensions of who you are. And my kids have, all kinds of things in that describe their brain, right? So I kind of almost, and as someone's, a little bit educated in neuroscience, I say this with a little bit of there's a joke in here. It's not realistic, but I kind of attack each quadrant, and I say quadrant more of like a drawing of the brain and all those areas at the time, because the other thing is, these changes not only don't happen overnight, they may or may not be universal and complete, right? So you might have to just say, I can't change everything. Let me focus on one or two things that I can. And so along that way, if you can get supporters and or lessen the detractors or dampen the noise and the mental space you give to the detractors, that will set you up for that resilience in the current, environment, for when someone perhaps isn't supportive or questions you and that kind of thing. So for me, it's sort of like a stepwise process before I get to the end. And a lot of that is only possible from looking to support.
And so you've brought up so many good points, and that was a great question, Grace, because